Do you know that many young girls worry about driving on the freeway? They've learned not to drive because it's too anxiety inducing. People who are two or more races also had higher prevalence of some kind of mental illness compared to white people. Now, people say that it's the lowest among Asians, but here's the thing. I'm from India, from Asia. I think Asians, we just don't report it because it's not something that we grow up with. It's a cultural thing. We don't air our dirty laundry in public. I'm a mom whose teenager had a lot of depression and anxiety in high school. And I did not know what to do about it, even being an Ayurveda practitioner. So I started talking to other moms, and so many of us were in the same boat. Most of the moms I knew in high school, even middle school, a lot of the kids were showing symptoms of anxiety, and especially if they were girls. And that got me thinking, what is going on? We can't just say, this is social media, video games. The video games have destroyed our kids. There's something else going on. And mostly girls have a higher prevalence of anxiety disorders than boys. Overall, what is happening with the kids? Why are Gen Z and Gen Alpha girls sad and anxious? The Gen Z, the Gen Alpha, a generation that is different than any other generation before them. A lot of them don't drive. A lot of them are not in education, employment, or training. Let's talk about it. Disclaimer: Ayurveda is not recognized within the US of A. Ayurveda and Ayurvedic practitioners are not allowed to treat, cure, or prevent any disease. This particular podcast is for informational purposes only, and we are talking about a spiritual Vedic perspective. Now, according to National Institute of Mental Health, there are two definitions of mental illness. There is AMI or SMI. SMI is serious mental illness. We are not talking about that. We are talking about AMI, any mental illness, which is defined as mental, behavioral, or emotional disorder, which has little impact to mild or moderate impact in life. According to data, almost 59.3 million adults age 18 or over have AMI. That's almost 60 million people. And out of those 60 million people, 27% females had higher prevalence of this particular problem of AMI. Females had a higher prevalence, meaning that more women had anxiety, any mental illness, than men. And even within that, young adults between 18 and 25 had the highest prevalence, meaning women had more anxiety and more any mental illness than men. And even within that, young adults between 18 and 25 had the highest prevalence. Why? We're going to talk about that, but from a Vedic perspective. What is it about us women that we tend to attract mental issues and anxiety? Is it because of hormones? Yes, there is a hormonal cycle that starts when we are young and goes all the way till our periods finish. Once the periods are finished, we are perimenopause, postmenopause. So there's a whole hormonal cycle happening throughout our entire life. So that cycle doesn't help. So the onset of puberty brings significant hormonal shifts. It's a big wave of hormones going up and down like waves of the ocean, and especially that amount of estrogen that increases in girl. And it is said, in fact, there is research that suggests that estrogen can activate stress machinery in the brain. So that makes young girls more vulnerable to stress and emotional distress. So what happens? You have a young girl, she's just starting puberty. So first thing that happens is breast growth. So it's not just estrogen that goes crazy, but also there's an increase in progesterone. And what that does is the breast develops and the lactiferous ducts in the breast become more. They increase in number. And 6 months or so after the breasts are starting developing in your little girl, there will be growth of pubic hair and axillary hair as well. Around this time, as the period happens, there's ovary development, and also this leads to growth of reproductive organs, meaning that as the ovaries develop, uterus also grows in size. It goes from a tear shape into a pear shape. So that is not helping. And then there's vaginal changes as well. And in the beginning, young girls might have a white vaginal discharge. All of this is happening while the front part of the brain that is changing shape as well. So there is reproductive changes and changes in their brain happening at the same time, and there's a hormonal shift happening. So this is what's happening clinically. So this is all happening with young girls who just had a period. So we can say if they're teenagers, they're Gen Alpha. Okay, we can understand. What about Gen Z? What about people who are in their early 20s or even late 20s? Even they are still feeling it. They should have grown up. They should have done their adulting. What has happened with them? So look at it this way. These kids, they grew up with all of that, puberty happening and all these changes, brain changes, and social media around 10 years ago just went crazy. So, and then there's societal and environmental factors. Number one being social media. And there are studies that show the pervasive influence of social media is a major contributor for mental health, and specifically for young girls. And if you're constantly seeing all day and are exposed to false and curated images that are not even real, that have all these filters on them of an ideal beauty, ideal face, ideal makeup, successful, oh, look, I'm so happy while I'm doing these. And this leads to feeling of inadequacy, low self-esteem, and body image. Believe it or not, there's a lot of cyberbullying that happens that you and I grown-ups don't even know. In fact, I was introduced to it by my kid. All of this is going on. So at this time, while all of that reproductive development is going on, estrogen, progesterone coming in, all of these changes, and then a part of the brain that focuses on executive function, that part is kind of rewiring itself. There are new nerves. The emotional quotient is changing. Part of the brain that decides emotions is changing as well. There's blurring of lines between childhood and adult sexuality. There's a little bit of psychological pressure as well. The brain is developing and the reproductive system is developing, and there are new nerves that are being formed as the child is moving from being a child to a fully grown woman, right? There, and then there is homework. Oh my God, let's talk about homework. The pressure in high school. Why do we expect kids to just get out of high school and their academic pressure? It is an unprecedented stressor. College, high school, what are you going to do? And especially coming from, Indian, Asian household, there's so much peer pressure. What are you going to do? And remember, girls experience stress differently than boys. Of course, boys also have it, but today our topic is talking about girls. There's, like we said, there is cyberbullying, there's online bullying, and there can be, issues of sexual violence as well. And that's what about the global stressors that affect everybody? Climate change. And of course, I'm sorry, I forgot about gender norms and expectations, societal expectations about how girls should look, boys should look, behavior, immense pressure. And then there's the media influence. And some people also may have issues with poverty and not having enough money. Political polarization. What party should we support? I mean, we all went crazy when Kamala Harris was selected, but all these Gen Z, they did not go and vote for her. They were very good giving her likes, but they did not go vote for her. There's a big difference. And then in school, there's hate crimes, school shootings. Let me tell you, as a mom, I am scared. And I've talked to every mom is scared. In fact, sometimes I go to school and I do a whole ritual of asking God to protect the school, doing my nursing mantras around it. And this general sense of unsafety and anxiety among young people. And sometimes some girls will internalize this. Pack all of these together, and then you have a generation, the Gen Z, the Gen Alpha, a generation that is different than any other generation before them. A lot of them don't drive. A lot of them are not in education, employment, or training. In fact, there's a new acronym going around called NEET, NEET. It's used to describe young people, typically between 15 and 29, who are not engaged in any formal education, work, or vocational training. It started in the UK and it just, went on from there. And yeah, they are anxious. And the maximum number of mental health imbalance is seen in this particular girls of this generation. So, what are we going to do about it? It's so important from Vedic perspective to take care of the diet and exercise for young people. Keep them busy, good diet. There have to be some behavioral modifications. There has to be some lifestyle changes. And yeah, I've given up trying to tell a Gen Z, limit your social media. So I say, hey, can you go 2 hours or 3 hours without social media or your phone? So, as part of the daily routine, they have to switch off their screens. That includes TV, social media, phone, or whatever, 2 to 3 hours a day. Don't do online exercise, go to a gym, connect with nature, and so on. So, from an Ayurvedic perspective, what we can do, if you have a young girl who has anxiety or restlessness, has some fears, having difficulty sleeping, focusing, and maybe feeling ungrounded, then this is, from Ayurvedic perspective, an accumulation of vayu or vata in the body. So, grounding things, grounding, like do not go running if you're feeling ungrounded. Yoga, exercises, swimming is another one. Having food that is cooked, soups, don't have salads, don't have ice creams, have things that balance well, the grounding vegetables, and so on. If you have a young girl or a Gen Z person who have some anger, irritation, frustration, and some skin issues going on, and also anxiety coupled with being, they're being critical, that means along with vata, the pitta or the fire element is also high. So do everything that you are doing as vata, grounding vegetables, grounding exercises like yoga, meditation, yes, swimming, all of that. But add to that, having cooling things like coconut water, avoid wearing red cloth, wear pearls. Basically slow down, just slow down and engage. Engage the mind in something. If you have a young girl who is feeling depressed but also lethargic and doesn't feel like doing anything, sluggish, is kind of emotionally heavy, and is sleeping too much, and maybe even having some weight gain, and is unmotivated, kind of stuck on earth, such a person should have a kapha balancing diet. Do not have for like a week or two. Avoid milk, avoid dairy, avoid wheat, avoid animal based foods. Just go vegetarian for a couple of weeks, or avoid, be plant based for a month or so. And have a lot of spicy foods. And yes, have salads, go for a walk, a fast walk, vinyasa yoga. Do not ground yourself. You have to unground yourself. So that is one thing. And then find what works for your daily routine. So, like I said, trying to wake up at the same time every day, trying to tell a teenager or somebody who's, very young, to get up at 5 a.m., 6 a.m., or Brahma Muhurta, which is the time of when the sun is rising, I find it's not going to work. So give them a window. Can you wake up around between like 6 and 9 a.m. and have a window and try to do that at least 5 days a week? And can we massage the body before we take a bath with oil, self love and mindful eating? And try to have a consistent sleep schedule. Very, very, very important. And please do not look at your social media and screen for at least 3 hours a day. Give yourself, or give 90-minute breaks between your social media. This is what we have come to. So, if we can have wholesome, organic, easy to digest foods, or grounding foods for vata and so on, and some herbal Medhya Rasayana. Medhya Rasayana means that the health tonics is number one, that I like, is one is Indukanta Grita, one is Brahma Rasayanam. Brahma Rasayanam is my very favorite. You can get it in Ala and so on. Even Chyavanprash takes a little bit of Chyavanprash, yeah, mix it with ashwagandha or Brahmi syrup, you know, and so on, and valerian tea, and yeah, yoga, pranayam, tai chi. No running, please. If you're a kapha, you can go for a run, but if you're vata and you're ungrounded, no running. You have to slow down. You have to bring yourself back into your body. Practicing meditation and mindfulness. So, if you're looking for some guidance, I'm available. My website is learn-ayurveda.com, and I am available on Zoom as well. Thank you very much for listening.